All right, guys, what was the best fight of 2023 that you saw locally?
The easiest fight that I can do is Shelton Sales against Josh Bonsinger, because that took place in North Carolina. And I want to be fair to North Carolina, because the fight that I like so much in South Carolina was that kickboxing match with Anthony Campbell and I forget the guy's name, where he made that that was not Campbell. It wasn't Campbell, but it was his teammate. We had that big combat. I love that. That was one of my favorite things to see ever in history. So I don't want to mix North Carolina up when I have so much reference with other states, you know what I mean, and other shows. And again, going back for the last 3 years, I've been seeing so much fight for it, whether I follow it online or I'm there in person. My view might be a bit skewed as far as the best fight, but I would say Bonsinger and Shelton Sales put up a good fight, only because I reached out to AI, and AI told me that Shelton Sales had a chance, and he demonstrated that he had a chance. You know, that I like that fight. I like that fight a lot. A lot of people thought I was nuts. A lot of people thought that Bonsinger was just going to eradicate Shelton in the first round, but it turned out to be a very competitive fight.
Yeah, I love that fight. My pick is probably a fight that was also on that card, but it was Brent Williams versus Javon Sanders. For as short as it was a fight, and I opened myself to the idea that maybe I had some recency bias, so I wanted to make sure I picked a backup. And definitely the other fight I saw that was the opposite of that fight narratively, you know, Brent and versus Javon had a certain dynamic going into the matchup, right? Javon's this powerful wrestler. Brent's a guy who's not a specialist in any one category, but he's kind of good everywhere, or he's at least like passable everywhere. And he's also been doing a lot of matchups against specialists lately. And Javon rocks him with a big punch because Brent's so worried about the takedown. And Javon goes headhunting, could finish it, could potentially climb on top of him and finish him if he goes for the takedown. But instead he headhunts, he gets hurt. Then Brent climbs on his back and chokes him. I mean, it was, you know, less than 5 minutes, or less than 3 minutes, but it felt like narratively a full fight. The other fight is Isaiah Monroe versus Deliverance Umpati on Next Level Fight Club. I thought that was a fight where Isaiah was in a lot of trouble and he was being outgunned in many areas. And some of the areas he was being outgunned in were the areas he's used to winning. And I said going into the third round on the mic, Isaiah's going to need to win this fight by submission or knockout in this round or have a 10-8 round. And he got off that stool and had a 10-8 round. A 10-8 round that was so unquestionably a 10-8 round that every single judge gave it to him. That is very rare in MMA, to deliver a 10-8 round that all three judges unanimously agree this guy just delivered a 10-8, especially in a state like North Carolina, where they're supposed to be a little bit more conservative with the 10-8 than they would under the unified rule set. So an incredibly gutsy and heart-filled performance. And just narratively, when you watch the fight, it's almost like the MMA version of a Rocky fight, like a grappling-heavy version of a guy who's just getting slogged on the whole time, having all of his best stuff shut down, and then in the third round comes out and starts implementing new adjusted techniques and delivers in such a big way that they hand him the fight. He didn't even need to get the finish. So that's definitely my fight of the year. Discarding my recency bias for Brent and Javon.
You know, so another issue we'll run into long term if we start doing more of these shows with the kickboxing MMA mixed, is that our picks for fight of the year is going to change based on category as well. You know, because then you're going to be saying which was the best kickboxing, which was the best MMA. You know,
yes.
So
my third pick was Willow Lyles MMA fight with Lily, or Ellie Moon rather. That fight was awesome for it to be a kid's fight, and it was definitely one of those fights that kind of like cemented me on the other side of the whole like kids MMA thing. I definitely am a bigger fan of kids MMA than I am of combat jiu-jitsu. So
what do fighters have to do as far as the marketing to break through with their self-promotion going into 2024? I think it's such a big thing, especially with pro fighters or guys who are thinking about going pro. What is it going to take? Because YouTube's free, Instagram's free. What are you seeing on your side, Dylan, that you say you stop and watch somebody's video?
I mean, I think you could start by listening to Words with the Mad Coach. That's a decent show. The guy on there seems like he knows what he's talking about when he talks about stuff like this. But I was just talking about this with my really dear friend Christian Gonzalez, aka Gonzo, and I was telling him that I think that the unexplored avenue of content is showing people what it's actually like to be a fighter. Everybody posts their highlights. Everybody posts like their clips from the fight. Oh, here's me doing a voiceover over my last jiu-jitsu tournament. Nobody shows like, the amount of training, the weight cutting, the going back to the locker room after the fight. What's it like when you're in the locker room with everybody else? Like nobody's actually showing people on the outside of this thing what it's like, which is what contributes to some of the incorrect ideas that people form in their minds about what's happening in MMA. And I think that pulling back that curtain a little bit and showing people what it's actually like to fight on these shows where you're putting your body on the line, you're putting your life on the line. And at the end of the day, when you factor in medicals and all this other stuff, you're paying to do that. I think that's a narrative that gets lost on a lot of these guys. When I look at some amateur fights on Instagram that go viral or whatever, people in the comments are like, oh man, I hope he got paid well for that. Or it's like, dude, he didn't get paid at all. He paid to get knocked out like that. Like,
Yeah.
people don't understand that there's no money to be made in amateur fighting. And then they talk about ticket sales. And I'm like, yeah, I know some guys that can sell a lot of tickets and they're not making more than $200,
Right.
from the promotion, right? So I think Maurice Morris, Joshua Oxendine, these are guys that can sell a lot of tickets. Whatever they're doing is definitely working. But as far as the social media angle goes and building a brand, I think that there could stand to be a little bit more honesty in the fight game.
Yeah. The thing with the social media is you have to explain to the guys that, hey, YouTube has a certain audience, Instagram has a certain audience. So just regurgitating all these same videos and photos and spamming all your friends with this stuff on the same platforms over and over and over with the same message of you being unbeatable, it doesn't work and people get tired of it.
Right.
You got to learn to use the platforms for how they're designed. So if it's a video platform, put up more videos. If it's a picture platform, put up a picture, but you can be creative with it by saying something like a meme, hard day at work, and you're in boxing gloves or whatever. Also, things like this, when you guys reach out to people and say, hey, do an interview with me, they should learn not to be selfish and act as if they're almighty already and got too much to do. They should take those interviews, because you guys kind of have a reputation, and so they're going to get that rub. They don't understand that. So every time I've tried to reach out to someone to say, hey, can you do this interview? They're busy. They're always busy. And I have no agenda. I'm just trying to promote you and push you. So a lot of it is the desire and understanding why they need to do it, because they need to do it now for long term. It's not going to have an immediate result. Just because you put up one video doesn't result in thousands of views. A lot of the videos I put up, many, many moon ago are getting more traction because they've been out there longer.
Exactly.
Practice for them. If you heard Dave Feldman when he was on Jimmy Smith's show, one of the things they're doing with Bare Knuckle is they're going to start bringing in people to teach these guys how to manage media, how to do presentation. So right now, these guys can get it for free and learn to practice and make themselves more appealing when getting ready to go to these bigger shows. They're going to say, well, this guy's already doing the things that we want. So, and they can fight. I think you always have to have, you can fight, and you have to have some type of personality, persona, and then you want to have a little bit of a story, some kind of story that help people connect with you and understand, how did you arrive at this moment? If you got those three things going, man, I'm telling you, it's a good start point.
Right.
Darren Eddy.
Yes.
He was the one, and it kind of came to me one day. He was like, you're out there working at social media. I was just trying to get my guys fights. So all the stuff that I was doing early on, I didn't have any idea of what using the power of social media was. I was just trying to get fights, and I figured that closed mouths don't get fed. So I was like, well, I'm just gonna talk about this guy, that guy, and maybe get some traction. And we've been in a lot of competitive fights over the years.